Hello to all the parents of the next generation. It's Megan Barella here, your positive parenting and happy home guide. Today we are talking about parenting as healing. So if you're catching this, make sure you drop a hello below. Let me know how you're doing today in this moment. And as always, I'm sending the very best to you and your family. Today we're going to be talking about how actually do we define parenting as healing? What does that mean? Because healing is one of those words that gets thrown around a lot. So what exactly does that mean? And then what are the very real life obstacles to our parenting as healing journey? And then what are some tools and approaches that I share with my happy home coaching clients to support your parenting as healing journey? So if you are joining us, welcome. And I also want to, as we begin, to let you know a couple things. If you connect with this topic of parenting as healing and connect to what I'm saying and my approach to supporting your family's healing journey through your parenting practices and your relationship with your children, this is the heart of what I do in Happy Home Coaching. So message me, let's talk more about getting your family support. The second thing to keep in mind is some of us, myself included, are on our parenting as healing journey due to maltreatment we experienced as children. So I want you to come in with a lot of compassion for yourself and for your lived experiences. I want to keep that flame of hope alive, that I believe in you and I believe in your children. And also to let you know that, if that is your lived experience, that these topics can be activating. So please just take care of yourself. Okay, so, and a couple things. I'm doing this. Parenting is healing. This topic is what I'm sharing in the Reconnect with Your Teen free virtual summit that is happening this week. I'll go ahead and drop the link to register. Inside Parenting for the Next Generation, I'm doing a giveaway, and I'm giving away a VIP pass to the summit. This is not offered by the summit organizers. This is a giveaway that I'm offering to my community. It's $979 in value. So if you want to join us for the Reconnect with Your Teen Summit, it's all free. And then if you want to be entered into that giveaway for a VIP pass, then head over to Parenting for the Next Generation and you'll see the post in there. And then in the Reconnect with Your Teen free virtual summit, the Parenting as Healing, my training, where I'm going to go more into this depth in the specific practical processes that I share, that's going to be live today at 12 noon Pacific time. And you can catch that. I'm going to hop into the watch party and say hello. You can also, that replay will be available. The Parenting as Healing will be available for the next 24 hours for everyone who has a free ticket. Okay, so there's some housekeeping stuff to get started. So parenting as healing. If you are a parent today, I would say you are on your parenting as healing journey. We all as parents today are on our parenting as healing journey. It just looks different for each of us. How do I define healing from a happy home perspective? It's this process of returning to our natural state, our innate place of wholeness. Okay, so it's this process of returning to our wholeness. Sometimes healing is talked about as like becoming whole, but I want to affirm for all of us that we are born whole, and that is in contrast. Like, I was raised Catholic, and the whole idea of original sin, it doesn't make sense to me. Truly believe that we are all born whole. And then it's through the processes of going through our experiences in life where we lose that divine connection to our wholeness. So my goal is to be a guide, to be that instrument to help all of us return to our natural state of wholeness. And specifically, what does that look like? That looks like being connected to our gifts, our strengths, our wisdom, our intuition, and our purpose through the high stress of parenting today. So again, being and staying connected to our wholeness, our gifts, our intuition, our strengths, and our purpose through the high stress of parenting today. And I'll tell you, I don't know about you, but for me, that's a big ask for today. But I feel like that's what we're all being asked to do, okay? And so how does this connect to our children and our children's behavior? Because a lot of times when parents find me, I definitely work with a lot of conscious parents. I would say all conscious parents who are high-minded, have high ideals and goals and values and vision coupled with high stress in one shape or form of another. And so what happens in our parenting as healing journey is our children go through developmentally appropriate behavior challenges. And when we are well resourced and we have access to proper tools and support, then we can guide our children's developmentally appropriate yet challenging behavior, negative behavior or misbehavior. But what happens for a lot of us is we have certain areas of high stress that are impacting our ability to show up for our children the way they need us to. Okay, so let's talk about that now. What are the obstacles to being in our state of wholeness, and where are we healing today in our individual families? And when we're looking at parenting as healing, we're looking at the healing work we're all doing individually, the healing work that I'm doing, healing my family line, the healing work that you're doing. But then there's that individual healing, there's the micro, but then there's the macro healing and the healing and the collective of our human family. And so, I like to think of us, we're all here doing our individual healing work, and then we're all connected in our human family. And the great thing is that the brain science is now affirming that. Have you heard of the social brain? What that says is the brain is actually a social organ. We are all connected through this master brain of humanity. So I want to affirm that, because sometimes parenting can feel so isolating, especially when we're struggling, especially when we're in challenges. And while your family is unique, no one knows what it's like to be in your shoes as a parent. I also want to affirm for you that whatever you're struggling with is also a reflection of what our human family is struggling with, and how our human family is being called to heal and to return to our state of wholeness. And that's something that, even if it doesn't happen in our lifetime or our children's or our grandchildren's lifetimes, that is the trajectory of where our human family is headed, on returning us to this state of wholeness. Okay, so what are the three unique experiences or unique challenges that we face on our parenting as healing journey? The first one is just unique factors in your family. That's your family unique reality of stress, of unmet basic needs, It's where your children are developmentally. What are their developmentally appropriate behavior challenges they're going through? What's their temperament? And if you have multiple children, how is everyone's temperament, like the siblings, how's their temperament and their brain wiring and their developmental stages interacting with each other and interacting with you? So there's all these unique factors within your family, but then there's each of your family members are this piece of a puzzle that can also ricochet off one another and create additional challenges. And so what we're looking at with these unique factors is, again, what I shared earlier. You're well-resourced. You have access to the support and tools you need. And then you're able to meet your children's developmentally appropriate misbehavior based on their developmental stage, their temperament, their brain wiring. And that's the goal, right? And from that, there's a real flow in parenting where we feel like we have the support to rise to the occasion of what our children are working on in their lives and meet their needs. But what happens on our parenting is healing journey is the developmental stages that our children are in. We may have experienced adversity or maltreatment when we were the same age as our children. Or there's a developmentally appropriate behavior that our parents and caregivers were not able to support us on. And then when our kids hit that age, we're going to face challenges. It's going to be re-traumatizing to us to support that. Then there's temperament and brain wiring. You may have similar temperament traits and brain wiring as your children. Sometimes that's wonderful because you're like, I know what my kid needs. And it can also sometimes be really challenging because it could be with that temperament trait and that unique brain wiring that you share with your children, no one knew how to support you, or your parents and caregivers harmed you in some way through their parenting practices and discipline, okay? So we've got all these unique factors in our family. And in an ideal world, we have the support and the tools to support our children's developmentally appropriate challenges or misbehavior. The reality for most of us is we're stressed out, we're under-resourced, and we're in a collective shift around discipline practices, which I'm going to talk about next. And we don't know how to support our kids, and that's when parents find me. Parents find me because they're like, Megan, I don't know what to do. I know what my ideals are. I know what my values as a parent. I know what my goals are. I know the kind of person that I am and that my kids are. But wow, I have no idea how to apply that in a practical sense to this challenge that we're struggling with, whether it's emotions, whether it's supporting your kids in school or with peers or with homeschooling. If it's around power struggles, if it's around defiant behavior, disrespect, you name it, anything under the umbrella of behavior challenges, that's what I'm supporting parents on. And we also know, because probably all of us have been there, how painful it can be when we're like, I don't know how to support my kid, or what I'm doing is making it worse, or I'm super triggered and activated, or I'm shutting down. And so that's probably like the main reason parents find me. When you have that consciousness as a parent, coupled with the high stress, your kids have this developmentally appropriate behavior, and you don't know how to support it. And it's really creating a negative cycle or pattern. And as long as you believe that change is possible, although I have to say, sometimes I'm helping parents, it's the belief that things can change that I'm also supporting, okay? So that is the first area where I think we're all working on our parenting as healing journey, is around those unique factors in our family, okay? But then there's also the collective shift that's happening around discipline practices. And this is the other opportunity that we get to dial in our parenting is healing journey, okay? And so for, the definition of discipline means to teach. And it doesn't mean to punish. And discipline has become a tool of oppression, both at home and at school, to limit human potential. And when people say that discipline practices are a tool, this discipline is punished, this fear-based discipline with shame and blame, it is most definitely an agent of white supremacy. And that's why it's so important for us to be following the decolonized parenting experts. And where we are right now is the brain science is now affirming what indigenous ways of life have always, what indigenous people have always known about raising children. The brain science is now affirming that indigenous wisdom. And that we now know, the brain science is affirming, these are the ways to optimize a child's brain for thriving. And before that, discipline practices first were rooted in corporal punishment. And then when behavior, hello, thank you for being here. And thank you for the work that you do. Discipline was corporal punishment. In the 1960s, behavior psychologists came along and they said, we have to reform corporal punishment, which was a great thing. And they did these experiments with lab rats, right? The lab rat is in the wheel going around. The lab rat gets an electric shock, right? And the lab rat wants to avoid the wheel. That they said, oh, that's a negative reinforcement. Round 2, the lab rat's back on the wheel and gets a piece of cheese. Then the lab rat has a positive reinforcement. The lab rat wants to be on the wheel. The behavior psychologist said, hey, we've got to reform corporal punishment, and look at that. We just modified lab rats' behaviors based on positive and negative reinforcements. And ta-da, that was the birth of and the rollout of the punishment and reward model, which now people are saying consequences and rewards. But in positive discipline, we say consequences are usually poorly disguised punishments, okay? So there's nothing wrong in your family if you're using consequences and rewards, if you feel positive or neutral as a parent when you're using them, and if they seem to be supportive to meet your parenting goals, to help your children, then I always say onward and forward with the consequences and rewards. But that's not usually the parents who find me. The parents who usually find me are part of this collective shift. They're saying, okay, my kids do not respond to consequences and rewards. Because why is that? Well, kids today are wired for fairness. They are wired with a sense of justice. And kids often feel, and I would agree, that consequences and rewards are not fair. And so what can happen is with the consequence and the reward, the system is being replicated from corporal punishment just to a little bit of a lesser degree, right? It's those poorly disguised punishments. It's the consequence and reward that's actually underneath it. The blame and shame is still there. We're still carrying that forward, right? Yeah. So if you find you're using consequences and rewards, it's setting, and they're not working. The reason why it's not working is because they're setting up us against our kids. There has to be a winner and a loser. And either we overpower our kids and coerce or manipulate them into cooperation, or our kids fight back. And kids today, they're not ruled by fear like we were, and that's a great thing. But what it means is a lot of parents find me and they actually feel victimized by their own children. they'll tell me, Megan, I feel like I'm in an abusive relationship with my child and my child is the abuser. And this is part of the reason is because we're using as our discipline method this system that sets us up against our kids. And kids today are wired for fairness and justice. They're not ruled by fear, and they're fighting against us. And that's when parents will find that they often feel overpowered by their children. Now, there's a lot of reasons parents might feel overpowered by their children. It can also be temperament, right? You might naturally be a peacemaker and a conflict avoider, and you have a strong-willed, highly intense, highly spirited, highly sensitive child. Okay, so there can be a lot of complexities. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And so, what is this collective shift then in discipline practices to really reclaim discipline as teaching, to help situate all of us, myself, you, in our proper leadership role as parents? And then what does a great leader do? A great leader brings out the leadership in others. So rather than fighting, right? Getting into those power struggles, or sometimes parents will tell me, Megan, I'm fighting with my parent. I'm like, how old is your parent? Your parent? Is your parent also a 13-year-old or an 8-year-old? Because that inner child can really get activated in these situations, okay? So what we're working on is not being in those winner and loser situation with our kids. Not in that we're either overpowering our kids and we're winning, or our kids are overpowering us and we're losing to them. We're throwing that paradigm out the window. And the challenge with that paradigm is most of us were raised with it. If not at home, then we were educated with it. And so what does that mean is when our brains were developing, that becomes our subconscious and unconscious wiring, a dominant pattern. So when we're stressed, that can come out and we can fall back into that fear-based discipline patterns, okay? So what is the collective shift then? The collective shift is really learning the tools of empathy, of emotional responsiveness, emotional intelligence, emotional maturity, healthy emotional development, reclaiming positive relationship and ways to soothe stress, and awareness around what our basic needs are in daily life, and how I always say stress is the problem, not us and our children. So really that's all the umbrella term for the empathy work, that connection work on emotions and needs and relationship. And then when we have that foundation, then it's the empowerment work, right? The leadership work, the assertiveness, the belief and the trust and the faith in ourselves, and aligning our parenting practices and actions with our parenting values, okay? So that is the collective shift that I help with in Happy Home Coaching, okay? And then the last thing, how we are healing individually and collectively, is around societal structural factors. And this is something that, is acute right now that we're gonna see play out in the next 4 years, and how the structural inequities and injustices negatively are designed to be a continuation of that tool of oppression to keep people and families oppressed, from everything from we're not having living in a society that values families and support for families. In fact, it's the opposite. Support for, single parents especially. Poverty, we're going to see an increase. The billionaires are out to do what the billionaires do, and the money grabs that are happening right now, and the increase in financial and economic hardship that we're going to see over the next 4 years, and then structural racism and oppression and how that negatively impacts families. And that's why it's so important to follow the decolonized parenting experts, because none of us are parenting in a vacuum. And a lot of times when parents are going into self-blame or self-judgment, it's really important to pull back the lens of how are the structural factors in our society at the root of what's going on. It's not a personal weakness or a character flaw. It's what's set up from the structural powers as be to keep people oppressed. And for some of you, your lived experience is way different than mine, but to still, for all of us to see those structural factors at play, that they're the problem with the stress of parenting today, not what's going on individually, that you and your children are good people, and that stress and structural inequities and oppression and societal problems are the problem, not the way that it impacts us individually, and the way that we respond to stress is not the problem. And that's why more than ever to come together in communities of support to support one another as parents of the next generation. Okay? So those are what I see as our parenting as healing journey. Everything from the unique factors in our family. And one of the things that's really important that I don't know that I highlighted enough that connects to the individual factors, the collective shift, and then the structural and societal factors is each of us are called to do some intergenerational healing. And for me, that's my individual why in my parenting journey and in my life, and it's what I help parents do. And when we can really honor what we have inherited from the generations before us and have compassion for ourselves and the change work that we're being called to do for our children. And for a lot of us as parents today, we're doing the work that our parents and caregivers and our grandparents, they weren't able to do. They weren't able to either, and keep us safe. They weren't able to show up with that empathy and empowerment. And that could be from any of those three main stress factors that have impacted families. And so for a lot of us today, we're like, no, this stops here. And that creates, just want to say, that creates such an extra. I mean, if you think of that burden that a lot of us are carrying, and I always think of like those intergenerational, but like those are parasites that live on our family line. And for our generation, we're being called to do the parasite cleanse. And in addition to all the other stressors that we're facing, that's a lot. I get tired just thinking about that, okay? So I really want to honor whatever your unique experiences of the stressors that you're facing as a parent and in your family, and to really celebrate you for the parenting as healing work that you are doing today. And we get to do this work alongside our children, because our children are leading us right into the next generation. We want to tap in to the future wisdom. And the irony is, a lot of that future wisdom is found in our kids' behavior challenges, in where we're struggling as a parent. The strength is in the challenge. The reclaiming of the gift is in the wound. But that doesn't happen necessarily. Believe me, I know that. Or that doesn't happen automatically. Believe me, I know that. That's what I help with, is those processes and tools to put in place so you can extract your gift, your wholeness, your strength, your wisdom from your current challenges. And then we can write that within ourselves, and then it's that version of ourselves that is here to support our children. Okay, so what are some specific, that was a lot of information. Let me know if there's anything you want to share. I would love to hear, a bit about your experience with landing with you, and with speaking to you, and any wisdom you have to share with us or questions. Okay, so here's the specific processes. And again, the Reconnect with Your Teen Virtual Summit, I'm speaking as my slot is going to be live today at 12 noon Pacific time on Parenting is Healing. And I'm going to go into the specific processes and strategies and more about what's unique on our Parenting is Healing journey when we're parenting teens or tweens, okay? What are the processes that I help people with? So I go in to the current behavior challenge and make sure that you're showing up in a place of compassion for yourself like you would a dear friend. Parents who find me, and I know when I'm, struggling as a parent, what happens is we kind of fear-based discipline ourselves, right? And we shame and blame ourselves and blame ourselves for our mistakes and for what we perceive as our shortcomings. And what I do is I come in and neutralize that so you can have compassion for yourself, because the parents I work with are highly conscious, empathetic people. And often that's directed outwards to other people and not to ourselves. So I come in and make sure that we can access that compassion for ourselves. When we can neutralize and have compassion and begin to celebrate what we are doing, like right in that situation, then we uncap that fear-based, that shame and blame, because that shame and blame, remember, it's a tool of oppression to limit our human potential. Well, when we can come at it with compassion for ourselves, then we blow the top off that blame and shame, and then we can begin to really access all our strengths and wisdom and intuition. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Okay, lots of love. And so what we want to do is, come in with that place of compassion, okay? And what does that mean for you? And what would you tell a dear friend who's living in your parenting reality today, and then offering that to yourself? Now, the second thing is to remember that the wall, the block, the rupture in connection, where we're shutting down or yelling, where we're overpowering or being overpowered, where we don't know what to do, where we're showing up in anger, where we're getting into power struggles with our kids. That, the wall, the block, the rupture in connection, that's where the healing is. That's where the magic is. But we have to create a lot of felt safety around that, particularly for those of us who are childhood trauma or maltreatment survivors, okay? So really, it's kind of honoring and understanding that block is here to be a teacher and to be a healing agent of change. And we want to then translate that into what we do want to see, into the positive, into the life skill we're teaching our kids, into what the positive behavior pattern is, into what that virtue or character development is, because the strength is always in the challenge, but we've got to extract it. We got to stabilize it. We've got to go in and kind of mine for the gold. And that's what I help parents do. And then to understand as part of that process is what your children, the way your kids need you to show up, that's also what you need for yourself. And that also is the thing that usually brings a certain amount of closure to your prior life experiences. Because what I always see is our children's behavior challenges activate what's being called for us to heal. And that's why that's not a given though. We get to have the support and tools that helps parents with that. And that's what I provide. And then overall umbrella, what I help parents do is restore trust. Trust in yourself, your wisdom, your gifts, your wholeness, your purpose, right? Trust your healing journey. Trust in your kids. Trust in the essence of who they are and how they're here to be our teachers, to trust in their unique gifts and wisdom and purpose, and really to translate, because what their behavior challenge is, it's just a spectrum of experiences. On the other end of the spectrum is their strength. So really trust that you have the ability to restore that challenge to its proper place of strength, and to trust that, and to trust in your kids, and then to trust in life and self, to trust in our human family. And that's where a lot of us have a lot of wounding, right? To really trust in life itself to support us. to support our healing, to support our families through this time of tremendous societal and structural, what we would say, oppression, yes, and particularly what's going on with this administration. It's really challenging to restore trust in life when we're in societies that doesn't support the human rights of their citizens, okay? So that's our Parenting is Healing journey. There's a lot more to it, but those are the main things. Understanding the different uniqueness that's coming together, everything in your family, from unique individual factors to the collective shift, to the intergenerational work, to the societal and structural oppressions that impact families today. And then to really have that compassion for yourself, to remember that the strength is in the challenge. The healing and the magic is in the wound. It's in the behavior challenge. It's in the block. It's in the times when we don't know what to do as parents, when we feel overpowered or like our kids are overpowering us. But it's not a given that automatically on autopilot we can transform these behavioral and parenting challenges and stress into the seed of our gifts and our wisdom and our trust in ourselves and our trust in our kids. And those are the processes that I've co-created and developed alongside parents, caregivers, and early childhood educators over the last 12 years, working with thousands of parents, caregivers, and educators. And that's what Happy Home Coaching is based on. It's based on the lived experiences of so many of us and the way that we come together in the collective in our human family. And so to remember that compassion is key, and the work that you're doing and that individual healing work is also a reflection of where the collective and our human family is being called to heal. And to follow the decolonized parenting experts never been more important than it is today. Okay, so would you like to get more support on your Parenting is Healing journey? Send me a message. Let's talk about Happy Home Coaching for your family. You can also go through my Happy Home Week. It's totally free. And I share some of the tools in the Happy Home Week. I distill some of the top tools from the Happy Home Coaching method. And then you get to schedule a complimentary session with me to take the tools from the Happy Home Week and apply them and bring them alive for your family. You can join us for the Reconnect with Your Teen Virtual Summit. I'm getting questions, is this appropriate for tweens as well? And yes, I would say if your kids are like 9 and up, you're gonna get value from this. And then my talk on Parenting is Healing goes live at 12 noon Pacific today, and it'll be available for 24 hours. You can also head over to Parenting for the Next Generation, where I'm doing the giveaway of the VIP pass to the summit, which is $979 in value, okay? So think about, what are you taking, what really spoke to you from today's live, and then how can you keep that as a proactive reminder for yourself today? And remember, you're not alone. We are all in this Parenting as Healing journey together. And what's important is that you have individualized and customized support for your family. So reach out. I'm here to support you. I'm sending all the best. Lots of love and support, and I'll see you next week. Okay, be good to yourself.